like to just run you through a couple of things here. I'll start off with a little demonstration of the Wintouch application. And bear with me a second because I want to re-record this because I'm starting a new one. So this is an application, Wintouch, that you can pick up in the Apple Store as well as Android. It is free. It resides on your smartphone as an application. And I just click on it and I'm going to walk you through this. I did this the other day. I'm going to create a new project, a unique name, and this project's going to be probably a single base station because of this network ID. The network ID is the first 4 letters of the sector ID, which has to be 8 numbers, letters, characters. Put my email in here. I get a service type choice here. This is a pro subscriber, so it can do committed information rate as well as best effort. I selected committed information rate. I also put in a required throughput. That required throughput has to do with the link test that is performed at the end of the commissioning process. So I put in 25.3, hit the little check mark. Now I've got a project created. I click on that project ribbon there, and it brings me to work order. Click on the little icon on the bottom, and I'm creating a new work order. This is a RADWIN Pro HSU 100 meg radio. At this point, for address, I could type it in simply enough. Or if I click on this icon, it looks like a target or a bullseye in the right middle there, it will find my address via GPS. So I clicked on that. There's my address up at the top, 33 Bentley Lane here in lovely Port Deposit, Maryland. And I select that. It will populate that. I can put in my phone number, which I'm doing, like Aaron. I've had this phone number for 13 years now since I've lived in Maryland. Put that in there. Again, some of this isn't required, but it actually is helpful at the end, being complete. And then I'm going to hit done and start my alignment process. Right now, my camera is activated by the application to go and scan the QR code. I was a bit away from the radio. I walked up to the radio now, scan that QR code, and that will start the negotiation of the Wi-Fi that's built into the subscriber unit with your handheld. So we'll just wait for that process to occur. It is doing the negotiation. Sometimes it'll take a little bit longer, especially if you're connected already to another Wi-Fi, which I was from my house. See that it's connecting. That's the serial number that it is reporting, and you'll see that in your Wi-Fi list if you search that out. My work order settings listed here. The first thing I can go and do is change. By default, these radios come out of the box in the 5758 subband by default. If you're trying to connect to a non-5758 base station, Jet Pro, Jet Air, you would have to go in and change that at this point. I'm going to select the 5758, leave it where it's at. I also get to select the 204080 auto, which primarily is going to be the go-to. If you're buying this radio to do 10 meg channels, that's a bit of overkill, in my opinion. But this radio does that 204080 dynamic at the base station. So regardless of if the jet unit is set at 40 megahertz, it'll negotiate at 40 or 20. If it's at 80, it'll do 80, 40, 20. If you set it to 20, then there's no dynamic capabilities, but the subscriber unit is smart enough to find any of those channel sizes. So I'll leave it at 80, 40, 20, and then I have to select frequencies to scan. Today, you have 2 different halves of the 5758. In those 2 halves, which I selected 1, I can pick up to 6 frequencies. These are 5 megahertz channels to scan. If I try to do 7, it's going to tell me only 6 are supported. So I'll hit save there on those 6 because I already know what the base station frequency is. So I really only needed to select the one. But if you don't know, you can select these 6 and scan. It's not that difficult to find it. You can also scan all of them. The challenge with scanning so many different 5 megahertz channels is the amount of time that you need to take and patience when you do your antenna sweep for your alignment. The more channels you're scanning, the longer that's going to take, the slower you're going to scan across that band. So I picked those 6. My CIR is still there, my 25.3. I'm going to hit continue. It's going to bring me to this page. What this is telling us is you want to orient the antenna face, and we're talking about inclination or declination. You want that to be oriented 90 degrees perpendicular to the terrain. If you're on flat ground, it's going to look like this. If you're shooting up a mountain or a hillside, you might start off a little bit with an inclination. Okay, why that's important, and I'm going to hit start alignment, is because that's going to determine where your middle sweep band is at. That middle sweep band is right here where you see the blue. You have an upper, a middle, and a lower. So that middle is where you're starting off there. So when the subscriber unit's calibrating, it's calibrating where to put that middle sweep. Okay. The blue indicates that I'm seeing receive signal from a base station in the 5 gig that matches my sector ID, or excuse me, my network ID, that 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to start sweeping horizontally through this band. I want to try to keep my antenna as level as possible. And you can see I'm sweeping through nice and slow, and you see the blue show up. I'm about 75 yards apart. Also notice it just said it found a base station, which is very important. So while I'm doing that sweep, it's talking and it's listening and it's getting all the pertinent information from the base station and said, there's my match, there's my partner. Okay, I've found the base station I want. So I'm going to continue to sweep to the right. Notice this black. I swept through a little bit too quickly, so it was unscanned. If there was no RF there at all, it would be white. Again, I'm very close, 75 yards. I scan back across. It fills that in and says, hey, I've got signal here as well. I just tilted the the subscriber unit in an upward direction. Notice that the outer ring has now become illuminated. I'm now going to sweep across that. It's about 3 to 5 degrees of up tilt to take it to that point. As I sweep across, I'm now going back down into the middle, and I'm going to get into my lower band for just a moment as well, which is, from my location, pointing into the dirt for all intents and purposes. But again, I'm very, very close. At this point, I found the 1 HBS. I can hit my arrow to the right and take me to the next location, and it's going to tell me this is the best spot that I want to orient my subscriber unit for the best signal. So I'll move my little needle there into that location, and it exploded that particular spot into this larger view. This is your fine adjustment view, okay? You're also going to get a readout down here at the bottom that's telling you the best RSS you've seen so far, as well as the current. So I'm going to sweep across here, and I'm actually looking for a blue square, all right? When I find that blue square, it will be the best location. Again, in this case, I'm super close, so things are a little different. But I've used this product in the field at half a mile through trees, a lot of foliage. Trees are not your friends, so let's just get that out of the way right now. But we do work remarkably well in the 5 gig. It's quite inspiring. We are actually deploying up in the great state of Alaska right now through some very tough conditions, and by all accounts, we are doing remarkably well. So I'm going to find my blue. There's my blue. Okay, there he's at. So I'm going to move my green on top of the blue there. Notice I do have a slight difference between my RSSs. Again, I'm at 75 yards, but out in the field, We do have clients that are actually deploying the native form factor in excess of 10 miles. I don't recommend that personally. Again, as Aaron mentioned, we're a capacity company. You know, anybody can give 10 meg service at 10 miles. Okay, we're at a much higher capacity these days. So we do recommend the turbo gain for those scenarios to give you a little more fade, if you will. So I'm going to move my subscriber in there, and then I'm going to hit my little arrow. It's going to tell me to lock down the antenna. So I'm going to lock that latch down and hit continue, and my radio is going to start a throughput test. Remember the 25.3 that I put in before. That's the target. This radio is going to do this test between the subscriber and the base. You can notice the progress down there at the bottom as the red line. It's a 100 meg subscriber. This subscriber unit will top out around 107 in each direction. Again, notice my sector ID, as I mentioned earlier, 1234 is the network ID. All right, the second half of that will be for sure unique. There's a couple of different ways to do that. So what this is telling me is I've got 215 meg aggregate out of this 100 meg subscriber, which is absolutely perfect, right? If you see 107, 107, or even a little bit higher, that's great. I'm going to hit complete. It's going to take me to this page. This is a recap of the report. I'll click the plus screen there, plus sign down here. Before I do, we actually allow you to embed 3 photographs, which is nice. Might need to be a little bit more than that in the future. But I took a little photo. This is my line of sight. There's my subscriber unit. Snapped a little pic, and that gets embedded into my report email. Hit OK. There it is. Hit my plus sign down here. I have 2 choices. I can edit this report if I wanted to, and I could edit these 2 items. I think I already filled all that in, so I don't need to. Then I click the arrow key, and it's going to allow me to email this. And because I put my email address in earlier, it's going to send this report, including the photos, to myself. In general, field guys are going to send this to their TAC, to their operations manager as a closeout. And this is part of the QC mechanism that exists. And at that point, that is the end of the presentation there. Do I have any questions? Let me see if there are any on that. Don't have any, so I'm going to proceed, guys. So checking some things out that are different with these new subscriber units. Number one, and most importantly, they are not directly accessible via the RADWIN manager any longer. All right, we have a new web GUI that we've introduced with the HSU Pro and Air products. I think you'll like it very, very much. It's very intuitive. So what this allows these days is if your field guy's caught out in the field, he doesn't have RADWIN manager. We hear that on occasion, which sounds like poor planning, but he can't get into the radio, so he has to get on his Wi-Fi and download the manager and find somebody that has it. We've taken care of that. Okay, so we have a new GUI there. That GUI is not accessible, over the air, if you will. This subscriber unit, notice the gray ball is unregistered. This is the same subscriber that I aligned with the Wintouch application that I just showed you. So he's sitting there waiting to be authorized. I wasn't using Radius, so I have to do a manual authorization. I'm going to right mouse click and register this unit. When this comes up, things look a little bit different than our previous revisions of code. Because it's a pro unit, I can select either best effort or committed information rate. I'm going to pick CIR today. I still have to do an evaluation before I can register. Notice the registration is grayed out. I could also set a maximum information rate at this point if I wanted to, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to click on evaluate. Purple background on my subscriber card there. It's doing its estimate throughput. Notice 1% up, 1% down. Aaron talked about the change that came about with the 4.9 firmware and our air protocol. We went from time slots to 0.5% time slices. Aaron also mentioned that one time slot is roughly equitable to 1.5%. All new subscribers that are being registered are going to come up at 1-1, okay? 1% down, 1% up of the base station total percentage. If you convert a previous revision, 4240 subscribers, for instance, they're going to come up at 1.5%. You know, our recommendation is you dial that back down to 1%. That'll give you the ultimate amount of capacity as far as base station utilization goes in your burst pool in both your downlink and your uplink. All right, so I'm going to register this subscriber unit. He's all registered now. He goes green. You get the indicator up here on the right-hand side that he's a committed information rate subscriber. If I want to go into this subscriber with the manager over the air through the base station, that's still perfectly doable, acceptable. Notice, you know, my 107 meg up and down, just like we saw before. One of the new things that's here is the Wi-Fi. All right, this Wi-Fi node, you cannot surf on it. It's for management only. You can connect to that Wi-Fi with your handheld, with a tablet, with a laptop, okay? Through the Wi-Fi, you can also, you know, connect to these subscribers locally through the Ethernet port. There is a specific IP address that's different than our default IP. The Ethernet default IP of everything that we sell is 10.0.0.120. The Wi-Fi address is 192.168.1.1. And you're looking at that right now and saying, hey, why does that say 0.1? Because my home network is running 1.1. And with the home network being the same, which you notice I'm running 192.168.1.200 on my base station, there's a conflict there. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So I changed it to 0.1 and all of my issues go away. It is configurable. Channels can be changed. Transmit power on this unit can be changed. It can also be turned off, all right, which, you know, is very, very nice. So I'm going to hit OK there. My subscriber's up and running, so I should be able to access him now over the air with the GUI. So the new GUI comes up. The password is by default admin and netman, which happen to be the read-write community strings for the RADWIN radio. So if you change those, you're changing the password. All right, so the new heads-up display, your menu's over here. So this is the overview, okay, telling me that I'm active, what my aggregate receive level is. All of my information here that I entered about IP address, your MAC address is here, who I'm associated with. My latitude and longitude is listed here. My sector ID, what frequency, what regulatory band I'm running, what channel bandwidth I'm running, a real-time device monitor. And yes, I know that I'm not pushing a gig with this radio. I've already reported the bug. It should be 106 dot, or, you know, so that'll be taken care of and is already being worked on. Our event log always running just like it did with the RADWIN manager, so it's listed there. If you go over to the menu again and hit configure, there's 5 different areas you can explore. Again, some of these are a little bit redundant because we've already seen it, but name, location, your network time protocol server can be entered in there as well. Under the radio tab, all of your information is here. If I wanted to turn down my transmit power, I could certainly do that and apply that and make those changes. If I wanted to change band using the GUI, again, all 5 FCC subbands are listed in here. 4.9 through 5.8, as well as the IC 5.4 band. I could make those changes here if I wanted to. Under the network tab, IP address information, obviously my Ethernet, well, not obviously, but my Ethernet's disconnected right now because the subscriber unit's out in my yard hanging on my garden fence. I'm not plugged into the Ethernet. I could set up my VLAN management here, my trap destinations. Everything is very clearly laid out. Your Wi-Fi configuration, just like we saw in the RADWIN Manager. You can also see which clients are connected. We will allow 5 connected devices to that Wi-Fi. Under security, just the link password information is there. Under tools, the unit itself, this is where you're going to do your backup. This is where you're going to do a manual upload if you're doing a software upgrade to an individual subscriber unit, and then your restoration is there. Under the network tab, some very, very exciting things that we've been asking for a while. This speed test here, which will run continuously, is running now. And if you go back to our unit, our purple background, our estimate throughput, it's the same thing. This is not traffic affecting, so you can run this in real time. You can set up an IP address, a ping session, which I'm very happy we put that in there, and that's very helpful, as well as a trace route setup. I've used both of those in the past, and they both work great. If we look under operations, our spectrum analysis looks a little bit different, as it is everything that we've been used to in our legacy products. All of this is listed here, and you can run that. Again, this is traffic affecting, but if you run it from the sub, it's only affecting that particular subscriber unit. You can save that to a file. Our diagnostic downloads are located here, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. We also have some increased functionality. I can do a full reset of the radio. Okay, it'll reboot the entire radio. It'll take anywhere from 45 to 90 seconds, depending on which band you're running. If you're in the DFS band, the 5.2 and the 5.4, the radar avoidance, you have to go through that 1 minute of scanning and probing, which will lengthen the reset time. The resync functionality, I think, is great. This gives you just basically, you're going to tell the radio to drop its RF connection and then reestablish it. That comes in handy, especially in areas of high noise. If you want to resync that subscriber, it may actually jump to another one of those individual beams, those 32 beams that are being formed in the base station. A very nice troubleshooting tool. License key activation, this 100 meg Pro, as Aaron mentioned, is now upgradable to 200 meg capacity. You would cut and paste your license key in there, hit activate. You're now at 200 meg. And our old favorite, restore to factory defaults, is listed here. Same functionality. If you click on that, you can set it to right out of the box at the 10.0.0.120, or you can leave that unchecked and retain your current IP address, so you don't have to do any reconfigurations. One of the real neat changes that we've added to this GUI is to allow you to align and complete an alignment so that your subscriber is ready to be activated through the GUI itself. So if you're having phone challenges with the Wintouch or your phone itself, you can actually just log into the subscriber unit via Wi-Fi, via Ethernet, and use this GUI to do your alignment. Once that's done, you'll actually get a red block here that says complete alignment. You click on that, and then the radio is ready to be onboarded by the base station. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you guys hung out a little bit longer, but that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm sure that most of you all know how to get a hold of me. You've got Aaron's contact information that he just showed. Again, we are always available to you guys. We are not a low-touch manufacturer. We want to get out there and teach you guys, teach our clients, your clients, how to fish. Okay, and best practices, training, webinars, out in the field, OJT, planning. We want to be part of all of that. We want to be part of our client success, and we certainly thank you for your time today. And if there's any other questions, I'll take a look. Otherwise, I will bid you adieu. Yes, your SU Pro today, James. The latest firmware that was released is a 4.9.15. That is a HSU Pro and Air subscriber unit only. All right, it doesn't need to be applied. As a matter of fact, it cannot be applied to the base stations today. The next revision of code I expect to be out in the next probably about 2 weeks with some additional features being added, and I'm looking forward to that. But today, to get the full functionality out of the HSU Air and Pro is the 4.9.15. If you need that, let us know. If you don't, if you have it, you can also get it off of our website on the portal. But let us know. We'd be more than happy to furnish that to you. All right. Well, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Team Hutton. Thank you to our mutual great clients that spent the time today with us. Again, we're really excited. I know, as Aaron mentioned, we came out of the box with a great product with a couple of shortcomings, and again, because we do everything in-house at RADWIN, we were able to stop that, make that correction. But I'll tell you, I'm super excited about the RF and these extremely small form factor HSU and Pro units. The RF is brilliant. The functionality is brilliant as well, and we continue to make great strides in improving our product and pushing the boundaries of what's available. So anyway, again, thank you very much, guys. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to talking to you all soon.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Thank you for joining RADWIN today.